It's fairly grim. If you go onto one of our wards where we've got the fail-safe, there's steel and wood above them, so if you're lying in the bed, it can be quite unnerving.
This hospital in King's Lynn is falling down. Built in the 1980s as a temporary solution to serve thousands of people, the hospital had a lifespan of 30 years. It's now well past its sell-by date and still hasn't been allocated any funding for a refurbishment. If money doesn't come through soon, it could be forced to close by 2030. The hospital has installed 1,500 props around wards in a desperate bid to protect patients from crumbling concrete.
We are a RAC-constructed hospital, so that stands for reinforced, aerated, autoclaved concrete. And the panels you can see behind me run up and down on the walls. We have about 5,000 in the walls and 10,000 in the roof. They have a life of 30 years. We were built in the 1980s and we celebrated our 40th anniversary during lockdown, so they are well and truly beyond their expected life.
So this is the main evacuation point for the hospital. So any patient that's on the first floor of this 2-floor hospital will be brought down this ramp in order to evacuate. As you can see, this is a temporary ramp. It's been made out of wood. It looks safe. I have to say it does look safe. It is supported. But if you look up here, the wooden plinths that a lot of the patients will see from their beds in the wards, and a lot of those patients have reported feeling slightly unsafe or have been asked to move. If you're lying in a bed for 24 hours a day and you're looking up and seeing these stilts, you might not feel as safe as you ought to.
It's fairly grim. If you go onto one of our wards where we've got the fail-safe, there's steel and wood above them, so if you're lying in the bed, it can be quite unnerving, and we do have to move some patients that wish to be moved to a non-propped area, but clearly we try and do everything we can to keep them safe.
Queen Elizabeth serves much of potential incoming Prime Minister Liz Truss's constituency. Local campaign groups say big promises of a new hospital made on the campaign trail are unlikely to be met. Last week, the hospital was forced to close 3 of its operating theatres after staff members noticed movement in the ceiling.
So every Wednesday, as part of a big community group, we turn up at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, rain or shine, to say that we need a full rebuild of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Liz Truss, this is her local hospital. This is where her constituents come. Hopefully she will realise the importance. I'm sure she gets the emails. I'm sure she gets the letters. So I think she realises that it's something that just can't be ignored. And what are people from West Norfolk meant to do? If this hospital collapses, are we meant to be driving to Norwich, Peterborough, Cambridge? What's the plan? This hospital takes up a huge number of constituents. Over 100, 200,000 people probably served by this hospital.
Nurses say if they're not vigilant, there's a chance an entire wall could collapse. Queen Elizabeth was not granted funding under the Conservatives' £3.7 billion plan to build 40 new hospitals by 2030.
Well, I'm employed at the hospital, and I've been aware of the situation with the roof in the hospital for since before the campaign began. At the time last year when the intensive care unit had to be shut down at short notice, and it's caused me to get involved in the campaign, and I've tried to support it in whatever way I can, whenever I can. I mean, it's concerning on a number of levels. It's concerning from the point of view of safety. I mean, I know the hospital are doing all they can in terms of round-the-clock safety checks, but as we've seen in the situation with theatres only a few days ago, that something can happen even when there's no one checking something serious could happen.
They're hoping they'll make the ballot for a further round of funding allocation later this year. In the meantime, they're planning to spend £19 million on a protective steel frame that will guard the first floor, meaning operations can continue.
Yeah, so we had great support, not just from Liz, but all our local MPs. We have been given some funding to put those fail-safe works in place. We've been allocated £80 million over the next 3 years. The important thing is that makes the hospital safe, but doesn't extend the life of the hospital. So the 2030 deadline is still looming.